Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Introduce myself. My name is Ika Nandayani. My student number is 2519060. In this video, I will explain the material about listening and speaking process. What are the speaking and listening process? Speaking and listening process are the how of speaking and listening and depend on the context of the speaking or listening situation, e.g. informal or formal. Student might not go through all of the stage or use a predicatable part. Speaker and listener often move back and forth between the stage, making the process fluid and dynamic. The next slide is the speaking and listening process and the planning and preparing, activating and building background knowledge, discussing, predicting, observing, selecting listening and speaking strategies to suit purpose, audience, and situation, and considering personal goals. And then the next slide, any managing speaking and listening, monitoring and regulating speaking and listening using self-questioning, self-talk, and feedback from others, and making adjustment to suit purpose, audience, and situation. And then the next, any reflecting and reviewing, analyzing and making judgment about what has occurred, and listening and speaking, identifying strengths and weakness, giving and receiving feedback, and giving receiving advice. And then lastly, any goal setting, identifying on needs and setting goals for further speaking and listening. The next slide is speaking process overview. Speaking underpins all learning and is the foundation for thinking. Students speak to satisfy needs and wants, is instrumental, interact social, is interactional, persuade and control other, is regulatory, explore idea, is imaginative, report and inform, is representational, and formulate and confirm talk is heuristic. The speaking process includes their distinct stage before speaking, during speaking, and after speaking. In familiar speaking situations, speaker will go through the stage automatically, but in less familiar or unknown situation, speaker needs to consciously control the strategies that they use. It is important to provide students with the understanding and appropriate scaffolds for each stage of this process. The next slide is speaker process planning and preparing. All the planning, gathering, and organizing ideas for speaking begin before students actually speak. In familiar situation, till we be instantaneous, e.g. talking to a friend or parent, but in situations that are less familiar, more formal, or with a less familiar audience, teacher will have to spend more time in familiarizing and engage the student. Effective speakers are able to make choice about how to plan depending on the purpose, audience, and context for their speaking. Effective speakers are able to do the following: and engage with the learning by discussing their thinking with others and determine their own purpose for speaking, and then lastly select a topic and text form suitable to the audience purpose and context. Supporting speaker to plan. Students need to be exposed to a range of techniques. For us with unfamiliar text form, you are demanding context and formal speech. Teachers should use a combination of demonstration, think aloud, and mini listen, as well as providing opportunities for students to practice using this technique in planning for authentic speaking situation. The aim is for all audio students to be able to select from a large repertoire of technique to suit the specific needs for each speaking situation. The next slide is activities that support speaker to plan. The first is sharing and personal experience. Providing students with an opportunity to talk in pair or small group to share understanding, question, and talk about the topic or concept to be discussed give them a chance to activate exciting knowledge. Any think, pair, and share. Think, pair, and share is a technique that gives students a chance to analyze and engage with their learning in a non-threatening way. And then the second, determining the purpose for speaking. Before speaking, allow students to determine the purpose, audience, and topic and situation for speaking. This is sort of reflection could be done individually, in group, or as a whole class using reflective framework. In pre-speaking reflective question, what is the topic, what is the purpose, how is the audience, and what is the text form, and before we begin, and what is relevant. The third is generating idea for speaking. The first, brainstorming. Brainstorming is a technique for activating students' prior knowledge and generating new idea. When brainstorming, students are given a limited time to record all they know about a topic. And then the second is DOVI brainstorming. After identifying and clarifying a particular problem or task, students can use the DOVI framework to direct the brainstorming. And there is the judgment of for original and out of the box. Vast number of quality ideas are built and expand by association. The fourth is stabilizing a knowledge base. Students need to know how their knowledge, experience, and perspective influence their speaking or listening choice. The first, communication detective is a planning technique where students investigate and analyze a specific communication context. They can work individual, in pair, or in small group to research speaking or listening in the school and with their community. And then the second, speech pyramid. The speech pyramid, Oliver et al. 1005, is graphic organizer that is used to record observation about the range of speech that occur in speech situation. And then lastly, speaking model. Social linguistics Del Jaimes developed a model to promote the analysis of speech events and speeches within a cultural context. The fifth is considering point of view. Students are required to work and interact collaboratively in a wide number of situations, e.g. in the classroom, with the family, in supporting time, and workplace. And what is my point of view? Inviting students to discuss even from different point of view stimulates their ability to make inference and judgment depending their understanding of action and behavior. The sixth is organizing and recording information. Any graphic organizer, they are useful planning techniques that help students identify key information and interrelationship between ideas. And next, making notes. Note taking is recording key information. It serves a number of purposes, including expanding knowledge of a topic or organizing and summarizing information for future reference or as in another task. And then lastly, planning for formal tasks. These activities will make some students feel very uncomfortable and unsure of themselves. Provide support by helping students to analyze and explore the demand of a particular situation, then helping them plan for those demands. Planning framework using information technology, using visual aids, and using anecdote, and then lastly is using rehearsal. And the next slide is speaking process, managing speaking. Effective speakers manage their speaking. They need to be able to interact with their audience, responding to positive and negative audience feedback and making the necessary adjustment. They must be able to predict, self-monitoring, respond to questions, summarize and synthesize, talk and explain and justify their opinion. Effective speakers manage their speaking, such as speaking clearly, use language, vocabulary, and social convention appropriate to the context, purpose, and audience, and then are aware when communication breaks down and are able to use appropriate fix-up strategies, e.g., reporting themselves, repressing or restating what was said. And supporting students during speaking. When considering how to support students during the speaking, it is important to remember that most of the speaking they do in the class will not be plain formal speech. And then the next slide is speaking process, reflecting, reviewing, and refining. This is important that students have the time and support to reflect their own speaking. Students will be benefit from being able to critically reflect on the effectiveness of their speaking, whether it is plain speech acts that have taken place in formal setting or speech that has occurred in unplanned formal setting. Any effective speaker reflect on their speaking and supporting students to reflect. Supporting students to reflect is student reflection needs to include feedback from teacher and peers as this form as essential part of setting realistic and achievable goals. The next slide is listening process overview. Listening interacts with a speaker to receive message, construct meaning, and respond to spoken nonverbal message. Make them aware of the different kind of listening. There are different purposes for listening, the qualities of good listener, and the stage of the listening process. Different type of listening and different types of listening context. Listening has been categorized in numerous ways. The four types of listening defined by Wolfin and Chukli 1092 is one of the simple systems for students to understand. It comprises any informal listening, critical listening, appreciative listening, and empathic listening. The next slide is listening process planning and preparing. Teacher can further support student development by making them aware that different situations may require different type of listening or a flexible combination of a number of types of listening. Effective listeners know how to prepare and plan. Effective listeners are able to make choices about how to plan depending on the purpose, audience, and situation for their listening and depending on the familiarity with the topic and the speaker. Supporting listener to plan. Any call-outs, brain writing, focus on key vocabulary, TQLR, and listening quiz. Call-out is an easy activity that can be used to activate peer knowledge. It is allows students to refine their idea and share their thinking with others. And brainstorming is a technique for activating student peer knowledge. It is an extension of the call-out activity and can be used with the whole class, small group, or individual student. Focus on key vocabulary. Students often listen to spoke text that record knowledge of specific vocabulary, e.g., subject-specific text, scientific and mathematical procedure, and geographical description. And TQLR is short for tune, question, listen, review. It is activities that will improve student ability to recall information and to listen in a focused manner. And then lastly, listening quiz. Listening quiz can be used to activate knowledge prior to listening, to focus attention during listening, and to reflect on after listening. The next slide is listening process managing listening. They need to be aware of their level of understanding and to verify and revise their prediction. Teacher needs to support students in this stage of the process by explicitly demonstration and rehearsing the strategies before listening, e.g., think aloud strategy, and reflecting after listening on the effectiveness of the strategies used. Effective listener know how to manage their listening and supporting listening to manage their listening. Any active listening skill and critical listening skill. The last slide is listening process, reflecting, reviewing, and refining. Reflecting on listening experience is critical as it allows students to reflect on what they have heard, clarifying meaning and expanding their thinking, while planning reflection and reviewing is as important as planning before and during listening. Effective listeners know how to reflect on their listening and set goals for improvement. Effective listener. The first can analyze and critically evaluate what they have heard. The second can review notes during listening and add new or reconfirm information. And third, are able to develop a new or deeper understanding of the topic and listening experience through discussion and questioning. And then set goal for further listening and supporting listening reflect and set goal. That's all for me. Thank you for watching and reading. See you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.